Welcome to our fourth in a series of 5 videos designed to help families with some quick basic information about trying to manage defiant and potentially unsafe behaviors as they relate to addictions. In this video, we will look deeper into our internal individual responses to external multiple social pressures that we briefly discussed in our last video. Pressures that are intertwined into our lives and that are driving and promoting problematic and addictive behaviors for many of us. We have embedded in us all an exquisitely complex sensory network designed solely to constantly and subconsciously monitor our environment for information, run a risk analysis on that information, and relay it to our bodies for responsive action. Sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, all of our senses pick up and send information to our brains to decipher if there is a danger nearby or not, and how to respond to the information. As exquisite as this system may be, the fight or flight reflex, as it is known, has some major drawbacks when dealing with our everyday modern world. Originally, this reflex was genetically engineered into our bodies for survival, growing and evolving through 2.5 million years of natural evolution in a world that mostly no longer exists. A primordial world that we have tamed for the most part through 10,000 years of evolving civilization. This span of time, the 10,000 years, is our entire civilized structural evolution, but represents only 0.004% of our human physical evolution. We now live in a world that still requires survival skills, but not the same ones as the primal instantaneous responses of our ancient world. A world where you may have lived or died within a 5-minute time span, depending on how successful you were at fighting or fleeing. As our modern world has evolved and grown more complex, we humans have not kept up with the changes. This is known as the progress trap. As our societies became and continue to become more and more complex, new stressors were created that trigger the stress response. But there often is little or nothing you can do in response to the perceived threats in our modern world. Nothing to stop the survival signals that are being triggered and generated that would normally have helped you solve the matter. There's often nowhere to run, there's nothing to fight, and you're left with a growing sense of anxiety and fear, and in some cases even dread of the world around you. Because there is often no relief from the stress response signals, we are left in a continual state of high alert. Not just for 5 or 10 minutes, but for 5 or 10 days, or weeks, or months, even years. And the threat response system designed to aid our survival itself begins to tear us apart. The survival system is not supposed to be on at high alert all the time. So, what are we reacting to? What has happened in our tamed down civilized world that we respond so negatively toward? Ultimately, we feel a tremendous lack of control, even a sense that no one is ultimately in control, and that we are left to our own devices to deal with overpopulation, traffic congestion, pollution, climate change, noise, fast-paced of life, crime, financial instability, political instability, multitasking, advertising pressures to buy stuff, overwhelming desires to buy stuff, the paradox of abundance, and well, this list can just go on and on. There's no end to it. Much of this is related to our perceived sense of loss of community and the growth of the cult of the individual. Currently, for many of you watching this video, there is also the concern over COVID-19 and the concurrent struggle of living in the same house with someone who is addicted. All these things, and a multitude of others, big, small, and the anxiety they create in us, lead to stress symptoms due to their sheer numbers and the length of time they trigger our stress response systems. We're always feeling the pressure of stress, collectively at unmanageable levels. In these circumstances, we begin to lose our ability to cope. We've developed some social conventions to deal with the symptoms, many of which are addictive in scope, but don't address the issues. They just deaden the stress response. The course many people are encouraged to follow is the use, overuse, and abuse of substances, legal and illegal. But this approach is not restricted only to substances. There are any number of activities we get involved in, often to addictive levels of activity and participation. For example, the addiction to fast foods many of us are indulging ourselves in for comfort and quick energy hits. An autonomic response for most of us to the stress we are suffering is that the digestive system is all but shut down, and the blood supply in the abdomen is redistributed to the muscles of the arms and legs, giving them more energy to fight or flee. But this leaves us with the inability to digest food properly or efficiently. We suffer indigestion of all types and manners and don't feel like eating. But we need energy, so we look for quick sources of simple energy. Tim Hortons, Starbucks, McDonald's, Taco Bell, and all the fast food places you can think of to get quick, easily digested sources of energy and calories. But then we put on weight and lack the energy to exercise or the focus to keep fit because we're under too much stress. All this pressure takes a toll on everyone. Primarily, there are levels of distrust and paranoia that we live with that erodes relationships, strains family ties, and for far too many bring us to levels of dysfunction as wide in scope as the symptoms themselves. Physical, psychological, psychiatric, social, and on and on. And this is just one example. There are hundreds, maybe even thousands more that we could talk about. If this video seems as if we're going around in circles, it's because we are. We are chasing our own tails, but there are ways of getting out of this trap. There are two primary ways of dealing with this unrelenting stress: passive responses and active responses. Oddly, the passive responses are ones that do not directly deal with stressors themselves, but are often active. The stress we feel is caused by stress hormones released into the bloodstream to generate some type of physical response from us. These hormones just need to be burned off. Physical stress responses can be dealt with physically through exercise. Low-grade, moderate exercise will burn off the hormones. Walking, biking, yoga, tai chi, any mild exercise will do. But don't overdo things and create more stress for yourself. You don't need to kick it. Just find something you enjoy to do and do it daily. Psychological stress can be dealt with through various meditation techniques, teaching focus, and grounding. Even going to counseling will help. Active responses involve actually trying to deal with the cause of the stressor. A simple example may be that you have to deal with congested roads every day going to work. But do you? You certainly can't solve the traffic congestion, but do you need to be part of it? Maybe you could look into a new job at a new location. Maybe you could take a bus or the LRT. Maybe you could bike and get both passive and active relief all at once. Maybe we can make the maybes real and with a little effort and a lot less stress. I hear a lot of people mumbling they hope that the COVID pandemic will be over soon so we can get back to normal. But is that really what we want? This world has become a pretty confusing and confused old place. Do we want that back? What about a new normal when the COVID lets up? What about we not go back to the old normal? What about we move ahead to a new normal? That might be something worth a try. This brings us to the end of our video. Thank you for taking the time to watch it in the middle of your busy day. I've tried to share some of my thoughts about how our society, and by extension us, are complicit in the addictions plague that affects us all. Take heart if it seems like an overwhelming task to curb these behaviors. It is hard, but it's a completely doable task and more than worth the effort. As always, remember, if you were supposed to be a superstar in all this, you would have been born with a cape. There will be one more video in this series where we look at different topics that impact us in our daily lives. Keep checking back to see when it is posted. I hope to connect with you all again soon. Take care and take heart.